You know us, we tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us. We are anonymous.
The world under lockdown. In normally bustling New Delhi, birds sing out in deserted streets. There is no one at Greece's tourist hotspots.
Tonight on 6 on Your Side at 10, a rare and powerful earthquake rocks the state from Twin Falls to Moscow and sends Treasure Valley residents scrambling for cover.
From cracks in the street to other signs of damage, Boise, Idaho got lucky from a big quake centered just about 75 miles to the north and east.
Oh my God. I'm not gonna see if Megan's got that one. I just worry about the beans.
But it wasn't just one quake. The 6.5 in blue has also been followed by aftershocks, dozens of them.
Related or just a coincidence? After a magnitude 6.5 earthquake yesterday in Idaho, we asked a local seismologist if it is connected to the quake here in Utah 2 weeks ago.
Floors, walls, our chandelier is shaking.
Tobin says the west coast is being pulled north and compressed. It creates a rotational effect east to that part of Idaho, which instead of being squeezed is actually being stretched and expanded.
So far this year, we tragically lost Kobe Bryant. Sports has been canceled. The coronavirus has us isolated inside our own homes, and now an earthquake? Can we just start 2020 over? And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Some years are like this and some years are calm, and you never know.
This is Mecca after the Saudi authorities imposed a full lockdown. Islam's holiest site is always packed with pilgrims throughout the year. But these are extraordinary times.
These farmers in eastern Kenya's Kitui County are running out of time. They were invaded by millions of desert locusts that used their farms to breed. Now their hoppers are about to mature, and if the farmers don't kill them all before they develop wings, then this second generation of locusts that have already devoured tens of thousands of hectares of vegetation across East Africa will cause even more devastation.
Although locust invasions are nothing new, it's been decades since swarms of this size were seen in many affected countries.
na tena ukiingia kwa miti kama hii anamaliza nyasi mpaka hata unastuka kitu kiendelea kwenda mbele atamaliza nini nyasi zaidi.
The swarms in Kenya will be moving north. In the region, countries such as Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, Eritrea and Djibouti will be hit hard as the locusts head toward the Arabian Peninsula. Some farmers are concerned that with the onset of coronavirus, many governments will divert resources meant to deal with the locusts.
A locust swarm can cover hundreds of square kilometers. It's not uncommon for a swarm to be as big as the size of a major city. And 1 square kilometer can contain at least 40 million locust adults. What's more, in just a single day, these hungry insects can eat the same amount of food that 35,000 human beings would be capable of. The current desert locust outbreak took the countries in the Horn of Africa by surprise. Somalia hasn't seen this amount of locusts in the last 25 years. For Kenya, it's the worst outbreak in 70 years. The scale of the locust invasion has overwhelmed these countries.
We start with breaking news. A 5.3 magnitude earthquake just hit an area that's just north of Yosemite. Right now, there are no reports of any injuries or damage. Again, a 5.3 magnitude earthquake this morning in central California. We'll continue to follow this story throughout the morning.
A 5.3 magnitude earthquake hit near the California-Nevada border this morning at 7:36. The epicenter was 31 miles northeast of
More than a week after the Magna earthquake, aftershocks are still shaking the Salt Lake Valley. Just this morning, there was a pair of magnitude 3 aftershocks. They're the latest in a string of hundreds.
And Bob, all that shaking is causing some anxiety for folks.
And it shows that while the rate of quakes is slowing, we'll likely continue to have aftershocks for a while.
The 3.3 magnitude around 10:15 this morning was among over 30 aftershocks just Thursday.
The floor jumped and lifted for a few seconds.
There have been more than 560 aftershocks in just the last 8 days. Most are too weak to be felt, but the 32 that reached a magnitude 3 or higher,
definitely very nerve-wracking.
Thursday's quakes moved east and closer to the surface, according to Keith Coper, who says it's common to feel on edge. Heightened anxiety can also cause so-called phantom quakes, when you feel shaking without an actual earthquake. Coper says it's all to be expected.
It's creepy, right?
Says it's different from what happened here in Utah on March 18th.
That was a magnitude 5.7, and that was what we call a normal earthquake, and that's where you have the earth being stretched apart.
Who felt the shaking from that earthquake all the way down here in Utah are now wondering if the Idaho earthquake is somehow related to the earthquake we had 2 weeks ago in Magna. 2 earthquakes, just a matter of weeks apart. And he says the 2 earthquakes are not related. He says it's sort of a coincidence.
Make sure you look up tonight because it's expected to be the biggest and brightest supermoon of the year. The supermoon happens when there's a full moon that's closer to the Earth than it's normally.
It's one of the world's largest coral systems, made up of nearly 3,000 separate reefs and 900 islands. The Great Barrier Reef attracts huge numbers of tourists every year, but this underwater treasure is at risk of disappearing due to coral bleaching. Over the past 2 weeks, James Cook University has surveyed more than 1,000 reefs. It found they were severely bleached in all 3 regions of the system and says it's more widespread than ever before. This is the 3rd time it's happened in the past 5 years.
If this continues, and we're seeing these mass bleaching events every few years, there just will not be the opportunity for the corals to recover in between these major disturbances.
It really is unprecedented, and when we think about what the Great Barrier Reef gives Australia, it's its cultural heritage, it's iconic, and the tourism industry, all of these facets we will lose instantly if we have another bleaching event of these magnitudes.
The reef is highly vulnerable, not only to warming temperatures, but also pollution and coastal development.
Of course, severe drought is intensifying bushfires.
Rain, rain, and more rain. After an unusually dry January and February, Southern California has been pummeled by a series of spring storms in late March and April.
An unprecedented response to a virus unknown to the world just a few months ago. Now on nearly every continent, country and street.
It's been called the crossroads of the world,
but these days, no one is going anywhere. New York, the center of American culture and commerce.
Even the famously busy Grand Central Station is eerily quiet. During normal times, 750,000 people would pass through here each day.
Italy ordered a national lockdown. 2 days later, the World Health Organization made a rare declaration.
We're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction.
Most governments have decided, for now at least, drastic measures are necessary to save lives, no matter the cost. Many have implemented unprecedented lockdowns to slow the spread of the virus so healthcare systems aren't overwhelmed. Scientists say we're in uncharted territory.
I'd heard this was happening, but I didn't realize it was to this degree. I mean, the numbers are astonishing.
Billions of birds, and biologists are worried that it's not only birds, there are many large species, many important species disappearing from the planet.
Yeah, well, you know, it is the canary. It really is.
Yeah, literally in this case.
I'm afraid so, and it has to do with the bird population that's dwindling at an alarming rate, Audra. New research finds the number of birds in the United States and here in Canada has fallen by 29% since 1970. There are almost 3 billion fewer birds than there were just 50 years ago.
The alarming die-off outlined in a new paper.
It says more than a quarter of the entire bird population disappeared over the last half century.
In fact, scientists say there are almost 3 billion fewer birds on this earth than there were 50 years ago. CBS 4's Jamie Leary wanted to learn more, talk to a researcher at CSU, and Jamie, he says, yeah, it's time to be concerned.
And he was watching this rapid decline along with other enthusiasts even before this study came out, and he has been on a mission for quite some time to show people why this is much bigger than just birds.
A recent study shows the number of birds in North America has dropped by 29% since the 70s. In Colorado, it means a loss of birds like the warbler or the red-winged blackbird.
The projections are not good at all. And so within the next, I think Audubon said in the next 50 years, it could be completely absent from Rocky Mountain National Park.
It means you'll hear less of this.
Even the sounds of our natural places, they're quieter than they once were. There's no doubt about that.
The bird loss is huge, but to Job, it means something bigger.
It's also an indicator of our health as humans, our health of ecosystems that surround us. And
birds have always been a great indicator species.
these are the canaries in the coal mine that are like sounding the alarm.
Peter Mara, senior author and director of the Georgetown Environmental Initiative, calls it an environmental crisis.
I think this needs to be a wake-up call. It's a horrible situation, and it's about time that people did wake up.
I mean, you got to pay attention, right? It's actually happening. And if it's the birds, what's next, right?
All right, moving on to news coming in from Rajasthan now, and it's a troubling one really, where over 10,000 birds have died at Sambar, one of India's largest saltwater lakes.
Though the official toll was 1,500, locals claim the number of dead birds could go up as high as 5,000. Disturbing visuals coming in from Rajasthan.
And the samples of dead birds have now led the Forest Department to believe the cause of death may be something that they still haven't been able to figure out.
But right now, wildlife lovers, bird lovers across Rajasthan and across the world are absolutely shocked with what has happened in Sambar.
There is shock and sadness in Venice, Italy, one of the world's most romantic and beautiful cities.
People wading through the water across St. Mark's Square, one of the most popular tourist spots in the world. Tonight, the mayor declaring a state of emergency now for what he's calling the apocalyptic rising water there.
This morning, another high tide in Venice, swamping the city once more. Tourists stranded on now useless walkways.
They call Venice the floating city. Crisscrossed by canals, for centuries it's been at the mercy of water. Now, though, Venetians say it's getting worse.
Venice floods dozens of times every year. Most of the city is just 4 to 5 feet above sea level. But locals here tell us that this is not normal.
St Mark's Square is normally postcard perfect. This morning it was totally submerged.
Floods in Venice are not new, but they're getting deeper and more ferocious.
The mayor declaring a state of emergency, saying the city is on its knees.
Just incredible images tonight.
Famous landmarks like 1,200-year-old St. Mark's Basilica inundated, water flowing through the church.
My life, this was the first time like this.
St. Mark's Square, now a swimming pool. Hotels and shops turned into canals as water rushes through buildings.
Good evening. Mother Nature is throwing everything at Queensland. Severe storm cells dumping massive hailstones, some as large as cricket balls, across the southeast. Thousands of homes are right now without power, all as fires erupt into wild conditions with more evacuation.
Australia's fire service chiefs have described conditions as catastrophic. High temperatures, strong winds and dry conditions are making bushfires travel fast.
Stalking Sydney's northwestern fringes for nearly 3 weeks, the fire in the Wollamai National Park this afternoon finally made its move. The huge wall of black smoke reared from the bush, and in its path several properties, including a timber yard and the town of Colo Heights.
More than 80 fires are burning across the state, and on Sunday authorities issued more emergency warnings. The crisis is also expected to intensify on the west coast. Nearly 500 homes have been destroyed over the past week.
I was just trying to stop myself from crying. And I'm a man, I'm pretty tough. You know, and you drive out there and just see the death out there. Everything's dead. That wasn't a fire, that was a monster.
Craig Roberts trapped in the driver's seat, giant hailstones pelting his windscreen, a spider's web of cracks threatening to shatter at any second.
Brisbane weather, beautiful 1 minute, the next.
Drivers had nowhere to go, cramming for cover at petrol stations.
And look at all the cars all jammed in.
The afternoon storm, fast and furious, lashing the southeast from the Sunshine Coast to the Gold Coast. Cricket ball size hail smashing homes. Blanketing backyards, wreaking havoc on playgrounds and playtime. Destruction everywhere, hitting with such force the roof of the Currimundi Woolworths collapsed. Lightning striking this Moreton Bay home, leaving a gaping hole in Christian Patterson's bathroom. It's been so long since we've heard this sound. But for our drought-ravaged region, it just wasn't enough.
It's the dry season in Zimbabwe, but park officials say this year it's much hotter and drier than usual. Hundreds of elephants and other animals are dying.
We've been through some pretty bad ones. When you see animals just walking along, elephants for example, and they just collapse on their legs, they don't even roll over, they just collapse and die. It's very emotionally moving.
This is Mana Pools National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the north. People here say the land has completely changed. This is Long Pool, the biggest watering hole in the national park. There's this distinct smell. Temperatures can reach more than 45 degrees Celsius, and even the fish are struggling. There are too many animals competing for scarce food and water, and many are exhausted.
Sydney's water supply has never emptied more rapidly than now, so quickly that zero water is not that far away.
If the rainfall doesn't improve and we consume the amount that we do, we would be out of water completely in about 2.5 years.
Current forecasts suggest Sydney has enough water to last until May 2022.
With the current rate of depletion,
we could be in a very tricky situation in a couple of years. We don't want to scare people unnecessarily.
Livestock dashing across red, scorched earth, peppered with dry weeds and shrubs, the ground cracking from lack of rain. The past 3 years, nothing short of brutal, and farmers like Jeff Power, who has land at Orroroo, are more than feeling the pinch. This reservoir had water at the start of the year, but it's now dry as a bone. Peterborough and surrounding towns receiving less than a third of the rain required to grow enough feed for livestock.
In my lifetime, this would be the longest dry spell I've known.
Sacked Wallabies Israel Folau has suggested the deadly bushfires ravaging New South Wales are God's punishment for legalising same-sex marriage as well as abortion. Today, Sydney reporter Gabrielle Boyle is at his Kenthurst church where those comments were made in a sermon. Gabby, take us through what he's had to say this time.
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Well, it seems that every time Israel Folau addresses his community here at his church in northwestern Sydney, he upsets somebody, and yesterday's sermon was perhaps his most controversial yet. He took to the podium to tell the congregation that bushfires and drought were punishment for same-sex marriage and abortion. So certainly some pretty controversial comments. Let's take a look at a little of his address.
You have changed the law and changed the ordinance of these things. Look how rapid these bushfires, these droughts, all these things have come in a short period of time. You think it's a coincidence or not?
Of course, Tom, his multi-million-dollar Rugby Australia contract was torn up earlier in the year for other controversial comments about same-sex marriage, and he is currently taking them to court, taking legal action against that sacking.
Ken, as usual, we are still trying to get to the bottom of this.
This continues to be quite a mystery. Casey Cunningham reporting live tonight in Johnston County. Casey.
The Irish Whale and Dolphin Group is investigating what it describes as the unusual beaching of 3 dead whales off the west coast.
The latest whale washed ashore on a beach in County Sligo.
It's not too unusual to see a dead whale washed up on a beach in the west of Ireland, but in a little over a week, 1 dead sperm whale was spotted a good distance out to sea, and 3 have beached in Donegal, Galway and now Sligo.
This has never happened before in such a short space of time. So we're up here today to try and get an understanding of this particular whale that washed up in the street.
The whale is about 12 metres long and believed to be female, which in itself is unusual.
Typically we have males up this far north in the Atlantic. Females tend to hang around in warmer waters at lower latitudes, down around the likes of the Azores and Madeira off Portugal. So if we do have females around here, then it could be a change in the water.
An examination of one of the whale's stomachs showed no evidence of any plastic having been ingested, but there's no time now to examine the other 3 stomachs.
An unusual spike in marine life deaths. One day alone this week, 8 beached animals washed up on Long Island's North and South Forks. The data is important. Already these numbers have, almost tripled?
Yeah, it looks like we're 3 times what our numbers were for this time last year. So we're at 63 animals that we have responded to that have washed up dead on our beaches.
Since January the 1st, there is a number of 1,100 dolphins that have been found dead on the French shore. This number is a record, the highest number since the past 40 years. But we've seen an increase in this bycatch for the past 3 years. And right now it's such an alarming rate that the scientists estimate that it can drive the dolphin population to extinction.
Scientists wanting some answers tonight after two
huge whales wash up on the same shoreline.
This pair marked the second and third dead gray whales found in the bay in the past 2 years. There is a growing worry among biologists that this is a marker, a sign of the environment in Alaska changing and endangering the whales.
It has to be a concern for us. I think it has to be an early warning that perhaps something's changing drastically in their habitat in the north, in the Arctic waters, that they're not getting enough food.
A dead whale washed ashore on a Malibu beach, and it is getting a whole lot of attention. People soaking up sun and surfers riding waves, surprised at what they saw.
I'm an England boy, so you don't often get these things in the UK.
I've never really seen it like that close.
I'm glad people are seeing it.
It washed up around 3 o'clock this morning and didn't take long for curious beachgoers to pull out cell phones, snapping pictures of a dead whale, giving off a strong odor.
A dead gray whale was found washed up along an East Bay shoreline this morning. Spectators gathered along the shore in San Pablo Bay in Rodeo.
It's created quite a stir here in town because in Rodeo, they don't often see whales. A young gray whale. The cause of his death at the moment is unknown. And floating just a few feet offshore, it is easy to see.
That's the sound. Have you heard it? A series of startling booms are being reported in northeastern Sacramento County, and people say they've been hearing these noises for months.
Now viewers are asking us to get answers.
The tranquility of this Fair Oaks neighborhood is being shattered by some mysterious nighttime noises.
It's instantaneous. It doesn't last long.
Homeowners being startled by loud booms in the late evening hours.
It's like a sharp popping sound, like pop.
The noises are loud enough to set off car alarms and wake people from their sleep.
You know, rattles the windows.
For nearly a year, we reported on loud booms in the city of Girard. Today, a loud explosion was reported in Liberty.
So far, though, the explosion remains a mystery.
It was about 2:30 Friday.
Knocked me out of bed.
Calls to 911 reported what one caller described as sounding like a bomb going off.
It felt close. Not really close.
It actually shook the station. My partner went out and looked up and down Belmont because we thought it was maybe a semi that had blown a tire, and we didn't see anything.
One caller thought the loud explosion may have came from a nearby gas well, but crews checked it out and said everything appeared normal.
More reports of what neighbors describe as loud boom noises across our area tonight. We got at least a dozen calls and messages about this ongoing issue and brought it as breaking news to you at 6 o'clock. Now we're learning more about the mysterious booms that rock parts of Wake and Johnston County tonight.
It was like a little bit of a weird atmosphere and then boom, loud bang. And when I mean loud, we're talking about like it took the air out of your chest. So, you know, it sucked it right out of you. And then everybody come running out of the houses and stuff.
Neighbors say it wasn't like anything they've ever heard before.
It was so loud and it felt like like an echo went through this neighborhood, and I'm not sure exactly what it could have been. It was so unexpected.
Tells us they did not have any training events today, so Ken, as usual, we are still trying to get to the bottom of this.
This continues to be quite a mystery.
It has been years since California has experienced a major earthquake.
And that has experts wondering, when will this quake drought end?
Living in California, it's a topic that Caltech faculty member Michael Minuti is used to talking about.
I find it pretty fascinating.
Yeah, new research suggests that California may be in an earthquake drought, but experts are saying this calm period will end, but the big question is when. In a study released today, author Glenn Biasi says California is experiencing seismic silence.
The next century seems like it needs to be busier. It could be 6 earthquakes or even more.
There's no earthquakes in this record.
Dr. Angela Chung says the UC Berkeley seismograph has been very quiet with little quake activity.
So sometimes there can be stress buildup along a fault.
Experts say the Bay Area has been particularly quiet. Since the great earthquake of 1906 destroyed much of San Francisco, there have been only 3 quakes, magnitude 6 or higher, including Loma Prieta in 1989.
If you've ever tried stargazing in Boston, it's likely the stars you think you're seeing may just be lights from a plane flying into Logan. That's because light pollution obscures the wonders of the sky. Now, Bill on Beacon Hill argues that it's bad for more than just astronomy. It's called the dark sky bill.
So next week is International Dark Sky Week. It's a chance to make the case that we have lost something with light pollution. We've lost a chance to see starry night skies. We have wasting energy. We are affecting our environment, not just humans, but also animals and nocturnal beings. All around, lights at night, though we need them, are excessive and they need to be reined in.
Jeff, it's one of those days that those of us who live here in Southern California, is that kind of shared memory, that shared experience. So let's begin with a question. Do you remember where you were at 4:30 in the morning on January 17th, 1994?
Somebody help this woman here.
Does this jog your memory? Or how about this?
You know, the aesthetics part of this matters a lot to me. You know, probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been is also one of the darkest. The dunes in Provincetown, where there's virtually no light pollution at night. And you see shooting stars almost like constantly. So the aesthetics I understand, but go down the list. Personal health, what's the impact of lights at night?
Imagine that you lived on Provincetown 1,000 years ago. You had 12 hours of really bright daylight that you were out in and 12 hours of really dark darkness. We've screwed that up on both ends, right? During the day, we spend it indoors. We rarely get out in full spectrum sunlight. And then at night, we're playing with our devices, or we're watching TV, or we're making a late night run for munchies. All of that, we don't know how that's affecting our circadian rhythm, but I will tell you, if you disrupt your nighttime sleep habit, you wake up cranky, and there's a reason for that.
You know, I read in anticipation of coming something like the brightness of the night skies increases by something like 2% every year, which seems pretty dramatic, but was much more dramatic and depressing to me. In the same article, I saw a stat that's saying only 15% of us in the United States can see the Milky Way from our homes because of light pollution.
Right. And you know, as you've pointed out, this is really bad for those who just love the beauty and grandeur of a night sky. It's not really about astronomy per se. It's about what our heritage is, our natural heritage, and we've lost that.
The problem is light pollution, the urban glow that obscures all but the moon and a few bright stars and planets. Is there a way of measuring how fast we're essentially losing darkness in the country?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've done a lot of research on this. Up until the 50s, actually it started with Edison, with the invention of the electric light, about the turn of the century, but for the last century we've accelerated. It didn't become noticeable until the 50s. During the 1950s, astronomers and folks started realizing that they could not see the night sky as well. Our organization was founded in '82. By that point it was clear there was a problem, and it's growing about 3 to 5% every year.
Wow. I think people might hear the term light pollution and think, oh, that's a shame you can't see the stars well. But in your research, you have found that this affects our sort of evolutionary rhythms. This affects animals, this affects how we sleep, which are important things.
Exactly. I mean, we were the canary in the coal mines, the astronomers, the amateur astronomers. We saw it first. But the research is showing that it affects every species, and it affects species in a very dramatic way. And it doesn't just affect us, it affects every species from plants up to humans. But the impact is pretty dramatic. If we don't get enough dark, we don't produce something called melatonin, and melatonin can be an inhibitor of all kinds of disease. It's part of the immune.
Devastating tornado pattern that could threaten more Americans today. Think about this. For 12 straight days, at least 8 tornadoes every single day have been reported across the Central Plains in the Midwest. Now, that is the longest stretch of its kind in nearly 40 years.
This is what an F4 tornado did here just days ago. One of the strongest storms in the season. Just take a look. This house is just torn apart. Those rooms completely exposed. Now, over the past 2 weeks, we've seen nearly 400 tornadoes from coast to coast.
Okay, there's a tornado that's touched down here.
A barrage of severe storms striking overnight. Tornadoes touching down for a 13th straight day. This was the scene in Canton, Texas. You can see a structure being torn apart.
Oh! Power flashes, power flashes.
That twister mangling traffic lights, destroying this gas station. Luckily, none of the gas pumps igniting. In Iowa, this twister tearing across a road. In Illinois, straight line winds were powerful enough to flip a small airplane. A tornado near Kansas City Tuesday was a powerful EF4 with winds up to 170 miles per hour. That tornado on the ground for 32 miles, leaving a trail of destruction. Flood warnings are in effect this morning along the Arkansas River, which is now at historically high levels, more than twice as high as it was just 10 days ago. And right now, every county in Oklahoma is under a state of emergency, with more rain threatening already swamped areas.
Switch these images here, go to velocity mode, tornado and more, tornado emergency for more, tornado on the ground, and more doing damage. Tornado and more right now doing damage, and again, circulation now is basic.
Incredible images as the sun is starting to come up. Where I'm standing is where one of the largest wholesale greenhouses stood here in the Midwest. But you can see that it was clearly in the direct path of this tornado, almost overturning a couple of delivery trucks. You can see the one behind me. There's debris spread everywhere, as well as flower pots. A business that was once in this community more than 40 years is now forced to start from scratch.
Oh my gosh.
A nearly mile-wide tornado ripped through Kansas Tuesday, destroying at least a dozen homes just outside Linwood. Look at that! Oh my God! Damaging winds flipped cars and pulled down trees and power lines.
Here's our living room. It's all gone. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to salvage some stuff. We didn't lose everything. We didn't lose our lives.
To the west, Lawrence was one of the hardest hit areas.
We took cover in the corner of the basement by the concrete wall, and we heard the upstairs just blow up, and water started rushing in from from up above.
Tornadoes were reported from Colorado to New Jersey, pummeling parts of Pennsylvania.
Things that were in the bedroom are in the dining room, doors off their hinges. Yeah, it just did a number.
We begin with reports of new tornadoes on the ground just a short time ago, this time in Pennsylvania. In fact, there are warnings and watches right now from Texas all the way up to the Northeast. It has been relentless and now deadly. The outbreak now in its 12th straight day, more than 50 tornadoes reported in just the past 24 hours. This one right here in Grant County, Indiana. Tonight, the devastating scene across Ohio. They have now confirmed multiple EF3 tornadoes, winds up to 140 miles an hour. Look at this, homes in Dayton completely destroyed tonight, schools and businesses damaged too. And all of this as we also watch a flooding emergency unfold across several states as well. That home right there sinking right into the river near Crescent, Oklahoma. Again tonight, millions bracing right now for severe storms. The warnings outside Philadelphia just a short time ago.
More than 50 twisters reported in 8 states. And a tornado emergency in the Dayton, Ohio area.
There you go, power flashes, tornado on the ground.
The tornado just hit our house. Oh my God. We were just sitting out here.
The New Life Worship Center taking a direct hit. Its steeple completely ripped off.
There's about 25 people, adults and children, in the bathroom inside there.
Within 5-10 seconds, it goes from quiet to a jet engine taking off.
The fire department breaking down doors with sledgehammers, searching for people who may be trapped. Neighborhoods in the storm's aftermath appearing apocalyptic. Multiple EF3 twisters tearing through the area.
It's a sad sight. Everybody's going through all their stuff. I can't even imagine.
In nearby Salina, widespread damage. An 81-year-old man was killed when a car crashed into his house. Back in Dayton,
you can see the kitchen, the dining room, and what's left. We grabbed each other, held each other, and just thank God that we were still here.
Surviving the storm in their basement.
Oh, dude.
Holy. Watch out, this guy's backing up too. I got at the front, you look at the back. This guy needs to back up. Mike needs to come to us. Oh, that's a tornado, dude. Yeah. We're in a tornado.
There went that tree branch.
Yep.
Right where we were
We're
at.
just in it. Mike, go to me. God, Mike.
Oh, boy, look at that. We're getting there now.
East I-35 looking off to the southwest. Now south creeping back up here. I'm having to see creeping back up to northeast. Well, this is going to be another one, David.
Overnight, that lightning show illuminating the California coast as threatening rain and deafening thunderstorms roll in. Nearly 1,500 pulses of lightning recorded off the Santa Barbara coast in just 5 minutes. Those massive branches of lightning splitting the sky above Santa Barbara, shocking the darkness with blue light. Those powerful bolts striking a Delta flight headed to Seattle, forcing it to return to the Los Angeles airport, which was also struck, briefly losing power. Nearly a quarter of an inch of rain swamping roads, flooding parts of Highway 1 near Guadalupe, California. 3,000 residents in Santa Barbara County ordered to evacuate ahead of the downpour, preparing for those potential catastrophic mudslides near those fire-seared mountains.
Parts of East Tennessee felt the earth move this afternoon. The U.S. Geological Survey says a 3.4 magnitude earthquake shook parts of our area. The epicenter was recorded almost 10 miles below the surface, just northeast of Maynardville. We did speak to employees at Oakey's Pharmacy in Maynardville. They described the moment the quake rumbled through that area. We thought a car hit our building here at Channel 10. People reported feeling that quake as far north as Kentucky and east as Nashville, Asheville, North Carolina. More than 1,600 people reported feeling it to the USGS. Several people took to social media to talk about the shakeup.
Don't make you feel good because, you know, it's awful close.
While silent through the night.
No, we didn't hear anything. I didn't know anything till watching the news.
The impact this massive sinkhole left
It's a pretty big hole.
is bringing concerns for people living just feet away.
And I'm thinking, oh my God.
With their homes built above underground caves.
Right away I thought, oh my God, is this an indication of the house is gonna fall in?
We're told Louisville zoo workers came across the sinkhole Wednesday morning in an undeveloped section of the property.
Your zoo is staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We're always monitoring every aspect of it.
The zoo promptly closing its doors after discovering the sinkhole. The mega cavern closing its doors earlier in the day, a precaution due to a 3.4 magnitude earthquake out of Tennessee. Early estimates show the hole is around 50 yards wide, 85 yards long, and believed to be more than 50 feet deep in some parts. While ruling out the quake as a cause,
because of the timing.
Engineers now assessing the damage to figure out what brought on this football field-sized crater.
Venezuela overcome by darkness. It's not just nightfall, but one of the country's worst power blackouts in recent history. The power cut reportedly affected at least 18 of the country's 23 states. Officials urge citizens to be patient. Advice many of those affected implied is much easier suggested than done.
It was massive, engulfing Highway 91 in Colorado yesterday. Trees snapped like toothpicks. At least 4 drivers were in their vehicles as the avalanche buried their cars in snow. No one was hurt. Colorado's Department of Transportation says the avalanche was 100 yards wide and up to 15 feet deep. Earlier in the day, there were at least 6 other avalanches in Colorado, including one that ruptured a gas line.
It ain't gonna come this way, is it?
These avalanches come just days after this monster snowslide on Sunday that happened not far from here. It swept vehicles off the road. There were no injuries then either. But one avalanche last weekend was deadly. A skier was buried in 3 feet of snow. Officials want to prevent more tragedy by triggering controlled avalanches just like this one that happened on Tuesday. Right now, there are 4 areas in Colorado's central mountains that are under the highest danger rating for avalanches. This is the first time that's happened since forecasts began back in 1973.
To actually be around in avalanches and stuff like that, I mean, I have never seen something like this ever.
In Colorado, officials have recorded more than 2,000 avalanches, making this the worst season in 50 years.
These slide paths don't have a history of hitting the highway.
Avalanches have killed 19 people this winter, so officials are warning skiers, snowmobilers, and now drivers to avoid avalanche territory until the snowpack can settle and become more stable.
This is supposed to be a creek, but quickly it turned into a river running through the middle of downtown Sonora. This storm caused serious flash flooding. We're talking hail, water everywhere, cars stuck. This mess happened in a moment's notice.
It was a great deal all at once, and our environment just couldn't handle it.
The police station started getting a ton of 911 calls.
Just couldn't handle it. Water was in the streets, flowing down the roadways, into people's houses, into the businesses.
This Save Mart closed its doors because of flooding. This is what it looked like at the fairgrounds. People setting up for the Celtic Fair rushed to get out.
I'm standing knee deep in the water. The tent is a total loss.
Oh my God, look at this. Oh my God.
When Joe Marshall opened the door to his basement for the first time since the storms, he never expected this.
Oh my God.
Flood water pushed hail into the basement, trapping about 4 feet of it inside.
Oh, it moved my washer and dryers too. It moved them. So it was floating down here. Even over there. Oh my gosh, there's probably 3 feet solid over there.
Flood water pushed hail into the basement, trapping about 4 feet of it inside.
Look at that, man.
This was the view from his front porch. The stairs to his backyard looked like a waterfall.
I come out and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. My steps down to my basement, it was like a river. It was just flowing down through there. The streets were covered in water.
Floodwaters carried away cars in the resort town of Guerneville, north of San Francisco. Hundreds of people remain trapped while National Guard trucks are taking others to safety. Our Meg Oliver's in Forestville, California, in an area cut off by the flooding.
The only way in and out of Guerneville is by kayak or canoe. The small town was inundated after the Russian River overflowed its banks. Floodwaters surrounded homes, submerged cars, and trapped anyone who didn't leave.
Normally we park right here.
This is where you park.
Yeah, it's a road.
Laura Duplessis' house is raised, but her basement and yard are completely underwater.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No. Oh, there he is. Oh my goodness, there he is.
Overnight, severe weather pounding parts of the South. One possible tornado turning deadly in Mississippi. A driver capturing this funnel cloud forming and spinning near Columbus, where that suspected tornado touched down.
All units take cover. All units take cover. Have a tornado funnel reported.
Residents running into this store where they watched the strong winds and heavy rain pour down as the storm hit. The lights suddenly going dark.
So we were just crouching down and just praying.
ABC News confirming this morning at least one person was killed here. The damage devastating. Homes and businesses crumbled, debris everywhere. Trees and power lines knocked over, more than 4,000 now without power. A massive tree falling right onto this vehicle.
Hey, God is good. I'm glad to be alive.
And over 100 miles away, another possible twister spotted bringing a lightning show with it. In Tennessee, neighborhoods underwater. A month's worth of rain in just one day in Knoxville. The torrential downpours prompting dozens of rescues. And in the Midwest, the storm bringing blizzard conditions, creating dangerous roadways. Highways paralyzed, drivers stranded in Nebraska. The roadway turning into a crash course with several cars piling up.
The tremor struck the southeastern province of Morona, Santiago, near the border with Peru. The epicenter was in a sparsely populated area, and there are no immediate reports of casualties or major damage. It was followed by a second magnitude 5.5 earthquake in western Ecuador less than half an hour later. Shaking was felt throughout the country and in northern Peru. The possibility of a tsunami has been ruled out.
All-time daily record in Flagstaff, Arizona fell as the storm dumped nearly 36 inches of snow. That beat the previous record of 31 inches set in 1915.
People across Flagstaff shoveled furiously to try and keep up with the storm, but with the snow falling at up to 2 inches an hour, that was no easy task. There was so much snow, we saw some people skiing down the middle of the street, but it's not all fun and games. Even with 35 plows and help from the Arizona Department of Transportation, Coconino County had trouble clearing its 750 miles of roadway. Across Arizona, roads and parts of major interstates were forced to shut down. Some drivers got stuck, including Matthew Reynolds.
At 100 feet in is when I knew there was problems. Cars lined up. We were stuck there for 4.5 hours.
In Payson, the biggest snowstorm in 2 decades dumped at least 17 inches. That town usually gets just under 2 feet for the entire winter season.
My first.
Your first. What do you think
This
about
severe. This is bad.
The storm also hit other areas that aren't so used to snow. This is drone video just outside Las Vegas at Red Rock Canyon. School kids in Pasadena, California went crazy over the falling snow.
Oh my God, it's snowing!
It snowed in Los Angeles, and the hills above Malibu, and even where Chris Harrison lives. The rare snow blanketing Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona. It was plowable snow near Lake Elsinore, California. And in Hollywood, just days before the Oscars, snow covering Sunset Boulevard. In Las Vegas, the most snow Sin City has seen in more than a decade.
Take a look at this, a snowman in front of the iconic Las Vegas side, and that is a rare sight.
Tennessee caused a series of mudslides here today. They happened in Hawkins, Blount, as well as Greene counties. And 10 News anchor Beth Haynes joins us with more on how those dangers have really become real.
Yeah, John, the landslide on Highway 70 in Hawkins County killed a Jonesboro man. That slide swept his car 200 feet down an embankment. THP says 62-year-old Stephen Lawson was driving his pickup truck when heavy rain washed the road away. TDOT says a portion of the road as well as surrounding roads will be closed long-term. Crews will be working in the area through the weekend. Now, a section of 321 in Blount County is down to 1 lane due to continued slides. TDOT says it's closing a lane between Walland and Townsend. TDOT says crews set up a traffic signal there this afternoon. They plan to install a barrier rail tomorrow. The Blount County Sheriff's Office says drivers can take Old Walland Highway to get to Townsend. Now, a slide on State Route 66 in Hawkins County also interrupted traffic, and part of State Route 340 in Greene County is down to 1 lane.
Did you hear a loud boom earlier today? Several people heard and felt a loud noise around 12:30 Central Time this afternoon. News Channel 7's Tyler Allender joins us live in the studio. And Tyler, is any word on what it was?
Ron, with Tyndall, Eglin, and NSA Panama City nearby, we're no stranger to loud booms from time to time. This particular one seems to be a mystery, though, but I heard and felt it. As of now, there's no official word on the source. Law enforcement doesn't believe it's criminal. Many of you called our newsroom and left comments on our Facebook pages, and here's what some of you said. Barbara was wondering what the big boom was. Debbie said the houses on her street shook. Tiffany was also curious. Enid said she heard what sounded to her like an explosion in the Grand Lagoon area. Houses shook and even tripped the breakers. Now, there weren't any reports of an earthquake, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, and still, not everyone felt it. We had fewer, if any, reports from those who live closer to Tyndall, over to Callaway, Springfield, and Parker. But if we do get any leads, we'll be sure and pass them along.
White County 911, what's the address of your emergency? I'm in DD, and birds are falling out of the sky again. Birds are falling out of the sky again? Not kidding. We got like 7 of them in the parking lot, and they keep falling.
Well, good morning and thanks for being with us. Today, county workers will start cleaning up what you're looking at right now. This is on Sarasota County beaches, covered with dead fish. There are eels, just a ton of marine life, and we're talking about fish by the thousands on the entire stretch of one of America's most beautiful beaches, Siesta Key Beach. And the county is bringing in heavy equipment to help clean up those beaches. Brightside's Emerald Morrow is down there right now for us, Emerald. Just a disgusting sight, and I can't imagine the smell that you've been dealing with throughout the morning.
Yeah, Rob, it's pretty stinky out here, and it's just a mess. Really, as far as you can see, there are just nothing but dead fish, even some eel that are out here that are dead. Let me get to one that's closer right here. You can see it's really just not a place that you want to be if you're planning a beach day. This is not the beach to come to, nor is this the day. But let me give you a better look at some of the video that we have so that you can actually see how much of a mess it is out here. The water is very, very murky, and it's really lacking that beautiful blue and green that we're used to seeing at Siesta Key, and that's what really makes this area just so beautiful. Now, experts say they believe that elevated levels of red tide are to blame for all of the dead fish, and locals and tourists alike say this is really messing with that lovely beach experience that we all come here for.
This is the worst it's been. It's by far.
You're seeing it worse than you have in 10 years.
Never seen anything like this. And it's just killing off the fish, killing off everything.
It's terrible for the wildlife, and it makes the beaches unusable for us.
Yeah, absolutely unusable. I mean, this is not the day you want to come out here. You know, as beautiful as the sky looks, as beautiful as the water is, these dead fish are really going to get in the way of any type of beach experience that you have. So again, crews are going to be out here today, and what they're going to be doing is taking the time to assess and see if they actually need to bring out some big equipment to get all of these fish up and out of the way so that eventually you guys can come back out and enjoy, again, what is one of the most beautiful beaches in America.
It was another overcast and windy winter day in Draper when a not-so-normal thing happened.
As I was driving, these birds just were falling out of the sky.
Lacey Brown was one of the people who saw things firsthand.
They were all on the ground right around here and along the roadway. They were just falling out of the sky like leaves.
But they weren't leaves. They were hundreds of small birds called starlings. And like most birds, starlings like to flock.
You've seen that black cloud as it's flying all over the place. Well, that's a starling group, and they call that flying tandem or murmuring.
Experts say it's a technique they use to stay warm in the wintertime and to ward off birds of prey.
So what would cause hundreds of birds to fall from the sky? Some people are saying aliens. Others are saying maybe it was lightning or they were poisoned. But in this circumstance, none of those are the case.
No aliens, no cloaking device, no poison. It's just one of those freak things that the birds were just flying along, crashed into the side of a large vehicle, and boom.
Whether it be misdirection or weather related, something caused the lead starling to crash, and thanks to the breed's tandem flying, the rest followed.
So I pulled over to help because I noticed some of them were not dead.
Lacey says she saw one man shoveling the birds out of the road. Draper Animal Services was also there clearing the animals and collecting the ones that were still alive.
Yeah, it was not a sight for the faint of heart.
In Indonesia tonight, the horror of that deadly earthquake and tsunami
In fact, this evening, a piece of video and the sound now, the moment the earthquake strikes. ABC's James Longman making it to the center of the devastation.
Tonight, new video showing the terrifying moment that magnitude 7.5 quake struck Sulawesi Island. The earth ripping open, massive rivers of mud flowing. Today, we journeyed into devastated rural communities.
We've heard that there's a group of kids who were killed in their Bible group at a church up this street, but as you can see, it's basically impossible to drive on.
Motorbikes, the only way to make it in.
So we've come to the end of the road now, literally. The church that was here, the homes, the community that was here, all gone.
Emergency teams discovering the bodies of at least 35 children at that Bible camp. We met 27-year-old Inika, telling me she was near the church when the mud flow picked her up and swept her nearly 2 miles into another village, holding on to a coconut tree to survive.
There is growing desperation among Indonesians who survived the devastating earthquake and tsunami. The death toll has risen to more than 1,400. Recovery and rescue efforts are intensifying across the island of Sulawesi. Last night, President Trump spoke with Indonesia's president and offered to send aid. Ben Tracy is in the middle of the disaster zone in Palu, Indonesia. Ben, good morning.
As if things could get any worse here, a volcano erupted on this very same island today. Now, authorities say so far that does not require any sort of evacuations, but even the threat of that has added insult to considerable injury. This is where the tsunami's nearly 20-foot-high wall of water hit Palu. Barely anything is left standing. The water also destroyed something that can never be rebuilt. Aldiani lost 5 of her family members, including her father and mother.
I lost my family. I very love you. I very love him. I very love her.
Aid is not arriving fast enough, and basic supplies are quickly running out. So we were just driving by this gas station and we saw this. Hundreds of people are camped out here with their gas cans, hoping to get them filled up. At the front of the line was this man named Ari. He sat here through the night, only to find out there won't be any fuel arriving today. How hard is it to live in this town right now for you?
I don't know, maybe it's chaos.
The sheer scale of this disaster seems more overwhelming. We want people who are watching this in the United States or other places to know about what's happening here.
We need your help, please, people from all around the world.
People here are starting to get angry about how the Indonesian government is handling the response to this disaster. But one piece of good news, the Red Cross tells us that a ship full of supplies should arrive here on Friday.
In March 2011, the world watched in awe and horror as a colossal tsunami ravaged eastern Japan. The result of a 9.0 magnitude earthquake. Entire cities were washed away. Millions stranded without power or water. 15,000 died. It was an otherworldly event, thousands of miles away. Thank goodness, many of us thought. It couldn't happen here. But it could happen here. In fact, scientists say it's a question of when, not if, a devastating earthquake, followed by a huge tsunami, strikes the continental United States, right here in the Pacific Northwest.
This would be like 5 or 6 Katrinas all at once, up and down from California to Canada would be the closest thing I can think of.
It may sound like a Hollywood disaster movie. I see it! But it's not. In fact, his research shows much of the region is overdue for a major quake. The last one was back in 1700, long before there were large cities right in harm's way.
If it happens anytime soon, it would just devastate the area.
Goldfinger estimates There's a 1 in 3 chance the quake will strike sometime in the next 50 years.
Would you say that we're prepared for something like this?
We're not completely unprepared, but we're pretty darn close. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably a little shy of 1 at this point.
This is Ground Zero, the 700-mile-long area off the Pacific coast called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, where the North American tectonic plate meets another plate known as the Juan de Fuca.
The dark image we're seeing here is literally sliding under the lighter image.
That's right. So they're converging but still stuck. And so what happens is the weaker plate, which is North America, buckles. And eventually something's going to give. So the coastline that's been jacked up over 500-ish years or so is going to drop about a meter in about a minute or so.
And that's just the earthquake. Next, as we saw in Japan, comes a tsunami, with waves as high as 50 feet roaring on shore, reaching miles inland. It's a threat the government says it's taking seriously. But
is FEMA ready for the big one?
I would never say.
This is CBS 2 News at 5.
For decades, his job to size up dead birds like these. Now CBS 2's Ventura Soli reports all those numbers from a Chicago scientist add up to a big discovery.
The stench is awful. They all do seem to be on the road and on the sides of the road and on the verges, which is very strange. The stench is awful.
Many of you will have seen on social media a video going around of an incident on Anglesey where numerous starling have been killed, and I mean many starlings. We don't know how it's happened, but I'll show you the scene. So we're just outside Bodettar here by Llyn Lake, and as you can see on the road here, there's approximately 225 dead starling on the road itself, and many others along the hedge on either side of the road. No starling apparent, no starling apparent in the fields on either side, which is very strange. So we've got officers now from the Animal and Plant Health Agency here who are going to seize some of these starlings with a view to having them examined for looking for poison, for example, or looking for any other thing that might have killed these animals. So it's happened yesterday evening at about 20 to 4 p.m. So if you have any information, if you might have seen anything happening here, because it's very strange, please let us know.
John Sewale has been a fisherman nearly all his life, so was his father and grandfather too. It's how the bills get paid, but he says something's not been right for a long time on Lake Victoria. The water is warmer than years before. This is the first fish he's caught in hours.
I am worried. Every time I come to fish, I catch very little. It's sad. Sometimes I don't get enough to properly take care of my family.
Scientists warn life in Africa's largest freshwater lake could die if the warning signs continue to be ignored. Fishing is one of Uganda's leading export earners. If the fish in Lake Victoria continue to disappear, it's not only the economy that will be devastated, but entire communities for generations to come.
Now, ocean deoxygenation. Probably haven't heard of that, but
It's a very big problem. Oceans losing oxygen.
New report from the International Union of Conservation of Nature warns the world's oceans are struggling to breathe. It is the largest report of its kind.
Scientists are calling this the ultimate wake-up call to humanity. Why? Well, the ocean represents 97% of the physical, habitable space on the planet. It is central to sustaining all life on Earth. The report found the loss of oxygen from the world's ocean is increasingly threatening fish species such as tuna, marlin, and sharks. This is a different sort of effect which we might not have considered before.
Correct. So it's a different type of crisis. It's the crisis of the ocean.
And it talks about different zones. Now, is that in different parts of the world? Is that at different levels of the sea? Tell us how it actually then affects the marine life in turn.
Okay, so what we're seeing, or what we've seen, is actually a decline in 2% of the global oxygen level. They have been reduced by 2%. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but just these two small changes will have enormous implications. So those oxygen-rich and which are favorable conditions to some species will shrink. These are shrinking, these habitats. But also we are altering the energy and biochemical cycles within the ocean. So this is all those different parts of the puzzles are coming together. We're already seeing the changes, and they're drastically all the alterations that we've done to the oceans.
Really interesting talking to you about this. Minna Epps from the International Union for Conservation of Nature, thank you.
A mysterious light hovering over the valley, giving a few folks in Mesa quite the thrill. But explaining what you're seeing on your screen, that is a little bit more difficult. ABC 15's Cameron Polam is on the hunt for answers tonight.
It was about straight up over here, and it went straight that way.
Stopped. From outside their Mesa home, DJ Mayer and Carrie Burnett shot this video Sunday around 9 p.m.
And it started kind of moving diagonal across, trying to figure out which way it was heading. And as it did, that's when we noticed it started dropping things from it.
The object, captured on 2 cell phones, looks like a bright orb hovering silently in the sky every few moments, dropping what looks to be flares towards the ground.
And it wasn't just us. Our neighbors next door, they were out. They weren't even filming. They were more in amazement, like statues just sitting there watching it.
DJ immediately posted the video to Facebook, and the comments rolled in, but none had an explanation for what they were seeing.
Finally, the aliens are here. Wow, that's crazy.
The entire event harkens back to 1997 and the mysterious Phoenix Lights, one that remains in hot debate even today. We reached out to several aviation experts who theorized the lights seen Sunday could be from parachute flares used by the military, or even helicopters or other aircraft dropping flares during training. In fact, the outlaw military operations area sits not far from where the video was shot, but video found online for those types of exercises just doesn't seem to match.
Oh, no navigation lights. Even the military has to have navigation lights on. That's an FAA rule.
We reached out to the FAA, Luke Air Force Base, and the Army National Guard, but none could say for certain what it was. And tonight, our guess is as good as yours.
I know what I saw, and I don't think that it was from here, and I think it was definitely something else.
U.S. Geological Survey out with some new data that puts areas of the East Bay and San Jose at a higher risk for earthquake damage.
The Hayward Fault, one of the most urbanized and dangerous faults in the United States.
It's no secret that the Bay Area is due for a major earthquake. The USGS just released this map today, and as you can see, there is a 75% or higher chance of a slight or greater damaging quake hitting our area in the next 100 years.
The excitement of the beginning of the summer holidays brought to an abrupt end. Thick plumes of smoke and ash rising thousands of meters into the air as the White Island volcano, 50 kilometers off the coast of New Zealand, erupts.
New Zealand geoscience expert Nico Fournier.
This is one of the most seismically active regions of the world. How did we not know that this was going to happen?
It's simply the nature of the beast. So some volcanoes are easier to forecast than others.
American Michael Shade captured it all on his phone. He and his family had just finished their tour.
It went from nothing going on to it erupting. We look back and we just saw this plume of smoke coming up from the volcano.
On shore, a helicopter grounded, covered in ash, and tourists stranded.
We're now 2,200 feet above the volcano. It looks pretty peaceful now, but that plume you can see indicates that this is still a very seismically active volcano.
On the scheme of things, for volcanic eruptions, it's not large, but if you are close to that, it is not good.
It's known as New Zealand's angriest volcano. Thousands visit every year, but this eruption was totally unexpected. Some people were just feet from the crater when it exploded.
For over 40 years in a Field Museum lab, David Willards measured birds, dead birds. Over 70,000 at last count.
Everything in this drawer has hit a building in Chicago.
Killed by concussions, most are collected by volunteers and make their way into Willard's lab.
We've been measuring the wing length, measuring the bill length, and then the leg length, and the weight.
For each bird, he's painstakingly jotted down the information by hand, in journal after journal. Still, Willard wasn't sure what to do with all that information.
I feel like I'm a way better data generator than I am a data analyzer.
But researchers at the University of Michigan flocked to his data, finding that over the years the birds were actually shrinking in size. Are we talking about massive changes?
No, we're talking in some cases, tenths of millimeters, but across a big enough sample that it actually is meaningful.
Overall, their length and mass has dropped about 2.5% in that time.
May I take the measurement?
Yeah.
What would I have to look for? I'd have to get it under the wing?
Brace it.
I'm not very good at it.
Researchers conclude it's nature adapting to climate change.
As the breeding grounds of these birds are getting warmer, it may be advantageous to be smaller.
Willard's records also found wing length increased by 1%, which could indicate birds are flying farther to find suitable places to breed.
The more examples of what it's actually doing to wild populations of things, the more we'll be able to put it all together and have a better sense of what the future is going to look like.
One of the next steps in this research is to examine the skeletons of these animals to see what that can tell us about the changes in bird populations and the world around us. At the Field Museum, Vince Girasoli, CBS 2 News.
Fascinating.
Oh my God.
He and his wife and grandson first heard that howl when they were walking back to their car at the end of the trail along the Vermilion River, about 45 minutes from the town of Sioux Lookout. Initially, Mikas thought it was a moose or a bear, but the experienced hunter quickly realized that it was a sound he's not familiar with. Mikas posted 2 videos on YouTube where they have since gone viral, racking up 2 million views. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, a wolf, Mikas says we may never know.
People living in and around Polk County saw something unusual in the sky as the sun was setting.
Investigating a mysterious fireball seen in the evening sky Thursday. Take a look at that. These pictures taken by a Polk County Sheriff's deputy near the city of Salem.
Today, Sheriff's Office and scientists trying to figure out what it was exactly.
Look at this here.
This happened in Polk County near Salem yesterday. The sheriff's office investigating. Early reports say it may have been a plane crash, but authorities say they checked all available aviation tracking system. There's no plane out there.
A photo showing what appears to be a fireball falling from the sky is sparking a lot of conversation. That photo was taken right here. And today, what it was is still a mystery.
Just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, I guess.
Richard Romano was working on his tractor when he went to check the mail and he noticed a small plane in the sky.
I heard a boom and I looked up, and same direction the plane was flying, big fireball fell out of the sky. And I go, oh, shoot.
Live Flight went out to look Thursday night. Nothing.
Honestly, we can't even put a location on it. The reason we're so involved in this is because someone in our county reported it. We have a photo of it and we have a direction. We can't even specifically say that's anywhere within our county.
But they can say this.
You know, we can comfortably say that this is not a plane.
Authorities used aviation tracking systems and worked with the FAA and Air Force. Their information doesn't show any lost planes.
The interesting thing is the aviation folks are saying it's a meteor. The meteor folks are saying that it's a contrail. So they're kind of, that's kind of being the contradicting information.
Friday, Civil Air Patrol flew a training mission in that general direction.
We've found nothing.
Same goes for the Forest Service. No fires.
I hope it was an airplane. I hope it was something. I know it wasn't a meteor. I've seen too many of those.
But what it was is up for debate.
We know it is not a plane.
So we went to talk to Jim Todd, the space science director at OMSI.
So my immediate reaction was that it was a fireball.
But after taking a closer look and hearing the initial report,
It should have been seen as far away as Seattle, Portland, Coos Bay. Anybody that had clear skies should have been able to see it because it was 60 miles up. We didn't get any of that. All we still have is just that one image.
This is so interesting. I know a lot of buzz on social media about this because it is kind of a bizarre sight to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've never seen that in the sky. So.
Right.
Others thought it might be part of a meteor shower that peaked last night, but the truth is out there.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Well, just a day after the harvest moon, it seems we have an interstellar visitor in our midst. Scientists at NASA believe a newly discovered comet originated from outside of our solar system. That comet first detected on August 30th by scientists at the Margot Observatory in Crimea. Although the official confirmation that the comet is interstellar has not yet been made, it's got astronomers over the moon because it would be only the second object detected as such. The first was observed and confirmed back in October of 2017. The mysterious visitor is bound for the sun.
A mysterious comet is causing a meteor storm this week. You can watch the Alpha Mensurtoid meteor shower either November 21st or the 22nd, depending on where you live. On the East Coast, it starts at 11:50 p.m. Thursday night. The peak of the shower will only last about 15 minutes, but the whole thing lasts 40 minutes. This shower happens every year around this time, but the reason this year is so special is because of the large outburst expected Thursday.
All right, the sky near St. Louis lit up last night with what looked like a meteor. Hundreds of people say they saw it across 100 miles. This bright blue light was followed by a falling object. Many say they also heard a boom. The video you see here is from a home security camera. If it was a meteor, scientists may not be surprised. The Northern Torrids meteor shower was expected to be at its peak last night.
Let's just say it was very unusual, whatever it was.
It's pretty stunning.
This awe-inspiring light show. Isn't it amazing? I have watched it so many times. The free display was all thanks to a rock burning up through the Earth's atmosphere.
Loud booms. It is this bright light show that has people buzzing all around our area tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Courtney Bryant.
I'm Steve Savard. Right now, we are still working to get more information on what exactly the fireball was.
When the ground underneath your feet starts to tremble and the night sky turns bright blue.
It was like really hard thunder. The house was shaking, but also it sounded like a train.
A fireball so powerful, the mayor of Winfield says he felt it too.
And heard a loud explosion, what it sounded like an explosion outside our window.
And as the meteor beamed just behind the gateway arch, there was only one way to describe it.
I thought it was amazing.
Looking back at the arch and you saw the light across the sky, it seemed like that meteor was traveling right over St. Louis, but it turns out it was a much bigger event than that.
There were reported sightings of the fireball in 8 states.
Many people are telling us they felt and heard a boom.
Huge boom is what sparked a flood of 911 calls in Cabarrus County.
There was just a huge boom and my whole backyard lit up.
It was around midnight when neighbors like Mary Laws heard that loud explosion, so loud she thought the worst.
I didn't see anything, just heard the loud explosion sound. There's a funny sound and then that explosion sound. And then we started hearing sirens, and I really felt like the tree was laying on top of my house, but it wasn't.
Neighbors all over Concord and Kannapolis heard the same thing. Many of them in the villas of Winecoff and Havenbrook neighborhoods. Some called 911 saying they also saw a bright light in the sky.
There was just a huge boom and my whole backyard lit up, like huge.
Well, Alexandra, residents have been coming up with all kinds of theories on their own as to what's causing the mysterious booms. The Fremont police chief calls this unusual for the repeated booms to happen this time of year, and he wants help to solve what officers call criminal activity. Mysterious flash of light and loud boom like this one are leaving Fremont residents on edge.
I heard like a really loud rolling kind of vibration underneath my feet and then a boom, like an explosion.
The chief of police, who has also heard the booms, hopes to bring peace and quiet back to his town.
If you talk to anyone around town, have you heard those booms? Everyone's going to say, yeah, I heard those. We're sure where they're coming from.
Police have responded to 5 boom calls since last week, but a special Fremont Facebook page shows around 100 comments from people who say they've heard the big bangs in different areas of town.
That mystery surrounding loud booms or blasts along the Wake-Franklin County line has not stopped.
No, it has not. So CBS 17 is still digging deeper to see if we can uncover what these sounds actually are. Our Birchell Edmay back in the neighborhood with what else we have learned this morning. And Birchell, you've been out there a few hours now. Have you heard it?
I haven't heard it yet. I've been here for 2 hours, but you know what? In the last few weeks, the neighbors have said it's been off and on, but it's enough where they came to CBS 17 to help pinpoint what is that noise that's happening in this neighborhood, the Barham subdivision here on the Wake-Franklin County line. So I do want to show you a bit of the neighborhood, both in the late hours and the morning hours. That's when they're saying they're hearing this loud boom. And neighbors have said, you know what? It's not gunshots that they're hearing. They're familiar with hearing that maybe when there's a hunting activity per se. So they've asked us, you know, can you find out what's going on here? We went to several agencies. We went to DPS, or rather DOT, and they said it's not them. They're not doing any construction work. We did go to Duke Energy. They told us they're not responsible. Even reached out to military bases like Seymour Johnson Air Force Base just to see if it's maybe in their flight path in some work that they're doing. It's not them either. So we did go to the National Weather Service because one neighbor suggested maybe it's just thunderstorms that we're hearing, but the meteorologists there, the experts say there haven't been thunderstorms recently, so Mother Nature can't be blamed for this either. So at this point, we are going to keep asking questions of local agencies until we can pinpoint what that sound is, what's causing the shaking of these homes. When we find
technology throughout the United States. However, some studies show a link between cell phone radiation and cancer.
Pioneering the technology that'll roll out in the late summer. Now, the industry says 5G could be 100 times faster than current service, but it requires more equipment closer to you, and some don't like that. the race to build a 5G network.
Today is a very exciting day.
The city of Sacramento fast-tracking the technology last year, partnering with Verizon, hoping to draw tech startups and innovation to the city. But 5G waves don't travel as far as current wireless frequencies. Instead of large cell phone towers spread far apart, it requires small cell sites closer together.
This will cause cancer.
Donna Barron is protesting plans to build small 5G cell sites on light poles in her Maryland neighborhood. She's one of several people raising health concerns.
This stuff is untested on kids. Their safety is not certain. These untested technologies are, at this time, not ready to be unleashed into our lives.
Research on the effects of cell radiation has been inconsistent. According to the National Cancer Institute, a limited number of studies have shown some evidence of statistical association of cell phone use and brain tumor risks, but most studies have found no association.
Can cell phones really cause cancer? It's been a question that's dodged researchers for years. But a group of experts are now saying the results of some tests are pretty surprising.
Millions, maybe billions of us constantly call, text, click, take pictures, and play on our cell phones. Even the top cellular radiation researchers from around the world have a hard time untethering. But they gathered recently in North Carolina to talk about cell phone concerns and whether they really do increase our chances of developing cancer. The panel voted that the results from years of testing on mice and rats were more significant than originally thought. They say they found clear evidence that phone radiation caused tumors in the hearts of rats, similar to tumors in people.
The race is on among cell phone providers to upgrade to 5th generation wireless technology, or 5G. That would require installation of new equipment across the U.S., a gargantuan effort every wireless company is already working on individually. 5G uses high-frequency waves that support faster speeds but don't travel as far, requiring a network of antennas built in closer proximity than the existing infrastructure. Wireless companies plan to use light poles, streetlights, anything to minimize their expenses. But health experts worry about potential risks associated with exposure to radiation from cell phone antennas. Cell phones emit low levels of radio frequency energy, or RF. The International Agency for Research on Cancer identified RF fields as, quote, possibly carcinogenic to humans. And in March, a large-scale lifetime study of lab animals confirmed a link between cell tower radiation and cancer. The animals were exposed to levels legally permitted by the United States Federal Communications Commission. But the 5G rollout will effectively expose the entire population to dangerous effects.
The rollout of 5G is very frightening because what this is going to do is place a mini cell tower every 300 meters along every residential street in the country. And that's going to mean that nobody is going to be able to escape the radiation that comes from those 5G devices. If you walk down the sidewalk, if you live in a house there, you're going to be continuously exposed.
International Association of Firefighters disagrees. They began opposing cell towers on fire stations after firefighters complained of health problems.
These firefighters developed symptoms.
Dr. Gunnar Heuser conducted a pilot study on firefighters at a station with cell towers.
And the symptoms included problem with memory, problem with intermittent confusion, problem with weakness.
Heuser says their brain scans suggest even low-level RF can cause cell damage, and he worries about more vulnerable groups like kids.
So we found abnormal brain function in all of the firefighters we examined.
I just kept thinking, like, what's going on with my child?
Erratic, explosive behavior. Developing overnight, a Jekyll and Hyde transformation as a 4-year-old.
It was just swings that were very dramatic and uncalled for the situation.
She would be tantruming for an hour?
Oh, there have been times where it was an hour and a half, 2 hours. She wasn't really wanting to wake up from a nap, and she had a minor fever.
And what did the doctor say?
No big deal, just run-of-the-mill strep throat.
But curiously, at the same time the infection disappeared, so did little Alexia's bubbly disposition.
It hits overnight?
Yes, yeah.
A lot of screaming, a lot of hitting and kicking adults.
Alarmed, teachers isolated Alexia from the other preschoolers, even resorting to using bookshelves as barricades. They snapped these chilling pictures of a classroom in chaos.
Furniture would get tipped over, bins of toys were dumped or thrown at people. When we would try and keep her safe in like an isolated area, she would just continue to elevate and elevate.
But things would become their most dire when prolonged tantrums turned into threats towards her family and herself. Vanessa takes her girls on a seemingly routine stop for a midweek treat until Alexia insists on seconds.
She said, "Mommy, give me your milkshake." And I said, "No, Alexia." And then she counted 1, 2, 3. And then I heard a click.
The toddler unbuckles her car seat and starts rummaging through her mother's purse.
As I picked my head up, she was stabbing me in the eye with my mascara wand. I was scared. I was scared for all of our safety. This isn't normal, you know. 4-year-olds don't unbuckle their seatbelts in the car to stab their mommy in the eye with a mascara wand all over a milkshake.
12-year-old Parker's brain
Get away! Get away!
is under attack.
Get out!
Mysterious outbursts that look like mental illness. His parents desperate for answers.
It's okay, Parker, we got you.
Recording these horrifying moments, hoping that someone might know what's wrong and how to stop it.
Behave yourself. I want my boy back.
When he became socially anxious and shut himself off, what was your reaction?
This is strange.
That paralyzing anxiety led to obsessive-compulsive behavior. Their normally low-key boy suddenly tortured by inexplicable rage.
Our son is in the midst of an absolute raging flare. You need to sit down and behave yourself.
Authorities in Ohio have been getting some strange calls about so-called zombie raccoons.
Zombie raccoons sound like something out of a bad horror film, but police in Ohio say that this is not a Hollywood script. They have received over a dozen calls recently about animals exhibiting very strange behavior.
In the past couple of weeks, Youngstown police have been called to over a dozen of these raccoon calls, and all of them have the same report of what they are calling strange zombie-like behavior. And all of them are happening in the middle of the day.
Looked over there, and he got distracted, and he saw a raccoon coming our way.
Robert Cogasol's playtime with his dogs was interrupted by a feisty and sick raccoon last week.
I got the dogs back in the house. The raccoon followed us right to the front door.
Once inside, Robert, a wildlife photographer, grabbed his camera to document what he called extremely strange behavior.
He would stand up on his hind legs, which I'd never seen a raccoon do before. And he would show his teeth, and then he would fall over backwards and then go into almost like a comatose condition.
Robert attempted to scare the raccoon away, only to find the animal was not interested in leaving. Reports detailing particular behavior and large noises or motions not scaring the animals away. The majority of the calls happened in the daytime too, and raccoons are nocturnal. Those animals, including the one in Robert's yard, were ultimately euthanized. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources tells me it doesn't sound like rabies.
We thank you for watching this video and ask you to spread the news. Put this video on your social network or link to it so that you can be part of the anonymous movement. Together we are strong. Together we are anonymous.